Hong Kong is home to some of the highest-rated universities in Asia, but confrontations between protesters and police have at times turned deadly. So many foreign students and students from the mainland are considering leaving for the safety of home.
4 days ago, I walked down here to a supermarket, and right now it's a battlefield. Yeah, it's crazy.
Our classes have been changed to online courses. The mainland may be safer. It's hard for us to go to class, and it's had a psychological effect on us.
The damage could go beyond the streets of Hong Kong. The U.S. Senate is considering sanctions on Chinese officials for undermining the territory's autonomy.
China will surely take effective countermeasures and firmly safeguard its sovereignty, security, and development interests. I want to reiterate that Hong Kong is China's Hong Kong.
The sanctions are being considered as Washington and Beijing try to hammer out a deal to end their bruising trade war. Economic data show their economies have become casualties in the conflict. Chinese factory output grew by a slower than expected 4.7% in October. Growth in retail sales also hit a 16-year low of 7.2%. Meanwhile, in the U.S., GDP grew 1.9% in the third quarter, down from 3.4% in the same 3 months last year. The two sides have been working on a partial agreement for a month, and U.S. President Donald Trump says it could be signed soon.
We're close. A significant Phase 1 trade deal with China could happen. Could happen soon. But we will only accept a deal if it's good for the United States and our workers and our great companies.
As part of that initial deal, the U.S. is expected to lift tariffs on some Chinese goods. In return, China is supposed to buy U.S. farm products. But both U.S. and Chinese officials warn the situation in Hong Kong and how either side responds could complicate the negotiations. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's go to Roderic Wye in London. He's an Associate Fellow at the Chatham House Asia Programme and has 30 years working on issues relating to China and East Asia. Welcome to Money Talks, Roderic. We're seeing these protests in Hong Kong really enter a dangerous phase. They're now taking place in the middle of the week, disrupting businesses. Office workers are now joining the protests, as we saw there. Could you have anticipated anything like this in your years covering the region?
I think what has been happening in Hong Kong has absolutely been extraordinary. And when it all started back in June, no one, I think, even had any inkling that it would last as long as it has and has spread in the way that it has. I think at the moment, the only realistic forecast is that things are going to get more difficult rather than easier.
Now, I'd like to ask you about the reaction from Hong Kong authorities. Some analysts have suggested they're not doing enough to quell these protests. Indeed, we're seeing these protests really take a different dimension now. We're looking at the scenes outside of universities where students are fashioning what look like to be Molotov cocktails, roadblocks and the like. Do you think authorities have done enough to address this protest action?
It depends on what kind of enough you're talking about. The authorities in Hong Kong seem all along to have treated this as a public order issue and have reacted increasingly strongly as time has gone by. But this has not been effective. We have seen a general spread, as you have reported, of the protests from away from the weekends to the weekdays. We've seen movements into the universities in Hong Kong, and it seems to be just getting worse. The other side of should the authorities have done more is they should have done more in a political sense to try and find some political solution to this problem rather than treating it solely as a public order issue.
Now, we're seeing quite tangible effects on doing business in Hong Kong as a result of these protests. Many large multinationals are telling workers to stay at home. We've got Hong Kong's carrier Cathay Pacific basically saying that these ongoing protests are hitting the bottom line there. Do you think authorities might step up their action now that Hong Kong's reputation as a financial hub is now well and truly being threatened?
Well, certainly the message from Beijing is that the Beijing authorities are fully behind the Hong Kong government in what they're doing and urging them to take stronger measures. But it is far from clear what these stronger measures might be and whether they would be successful. It is undoubtedly true that the continuation of these protests is harming the Hong Kong economy. It is stuck between it is suffering from the trade war between China and the United States. It is suffering from the turndown in the Chinese economy, and it is suffering from the protests in Hong Kong itself. It is getting a much more difficult environment in which to do business.
Yes. Now, you were the deputy head of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office's Hong Kong department from 1992 to 2002. Now, with your experience covering Hong Kong as well as China, what do you think Beijing's thinking is in all this? Do you think they will intervene, and at what point might they take a more forceful approach?
I mean, this has been a question that has been asked right since the early days, really, of the protests, of whether or not Beijing is likely to intervene in a physical fashion. So far it has not, and has said repeatedly, time and again, that it has every confidence in the ability of the Hong Kong authorities to handle this. It is still ultimately possible that Beijing will intervene, but I think they are clearly very reluctant to do so and are putting their trust in the Hong Kong government to handle these demonstrations. The problem, I think, is that Beijing still sees it as the Hong Kong government does, as a law and order issue. And if it isn't a law and order issue, it's an issue of patriotism, and that the Hong Kong people do not have enough patriotism, and thus they need more patriotic education. But that too has been a thorny problem in Hong Kong, and it's very difficult to see how the current approach by the authorities in Beijing, which is essentially to reinforce the existing policies that they were pursuing, is going to lead to any quick and peaceful resolution of this situation.
Okay, all the while we'll be keeping a close eye on developments in Hong Kong. Roderic Wye at Chatham House in London, thank you so much for your analysis.